Yo, quick announcement before the video begins. I will be co-streaming the entire Overwatch League West Knockout Weekend on my YouTube channel starting at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time every single day. If you want to hang out with me in the chat, interact with us, and react to the games in real time together, definitely come check it out. It's a great time. And now on to your regularly scheduled programming. The long-awaited end to the spring qualifiers is finally in sight. 5 weeks of action have led to this moment. 12 teams enter the gauntlet, but only 4 will punch their tickets to Korea. The glory of competing in OWL's first ever global LAN in Korea is on the line. Who's stepping up? And who's gonna watch from home? Let's talk about that. The weekends consisting of the East concluding their 3-week tournament run and the West speedrunning their own knockout round. As usual, with these kinds of tournaments, I'll first hone in on the guaranteed matches we're set to see on Friday and Saturday morning, and then we'll speedrun through the rest and I'll talk about how I think the brackets play out. Let's start with the West. The league did not do the best job of explaining the format beforehand, so here's a rundown. The West knockouts are split into 3 days. Each game is first to 3, and 8 teams are competing in total. And of those 8, the top 4 seeds will get a double elimination second chance at life, while the bottom 4 play at the disadvantage of being one and done if they lose. Not the greatest format in the world, but what can you do? For the games themselves, though, the top seeds will consist of 2 rematches from the qualifiers, Justice vs Uprising and Gladiators vs Mayhem, and I'll cut straight to the chase here. I don't see either game having any sort of upset. We're honestly kind of overdue for a tame day, and I expect the better teams to win out. Gladiators vs Mayhem, while interesting, should not go the way it did last time. Gladiators have shown they're a good match for Mayhem, that's pretty obvious, and if they're well prepared enough in the right mindset, they can totally beat them again. The only problem is, the Mayhem are better than the last time, and Glads are arguably worse. Recently, Glads haven't looked so hot, which is why I lack the confidence to say that they can steal a second consecutive game from Mayhem. The last 2 weeks have just felt sluggish. Glads have slowly but surely been playing less Yaki, and seem to be playing worse because of it. Glads are not playing with that same blinding speed we're used to, and I fear because of this they cannot get the edge against the Mayhem. Florida just look like the better team. They're improving drastically, that bye week did them some good, because now they're suddenly punching at the level of Houston Outlaws, which is not something Gladiators can say. Florida maybe feel a bit more sure of themselves and what they want to play compared to their last matchup, which I think will keep this from getting too out of hand, and I think they'll just play the dive and beat down the Gladiators in a surprising 3-0. This may be a little harsh in some people's eyes, but that's my honest opinion. Justice versus Boston draws my interest a tiny bit more though. Washington have shown they can be pretty suffocating when they're fully prepared, as alexyOWL and Flora give them this crazy firepower to handle Boston's main source of playmaking. They're definitely ready for this one, they want to get the revenge, and you add in that huge win over Gladiators last week, their confidence is probably sky high. I think the only issue that comes into play here is Boston have also gotten a lot better since their matchup a couple of weeks ago. The Boom delegations are officially out the window. They're focused, and they're looking to make Korea. Boston's riding a good wave of momentum. Their players look happier and more focused too, and they've strung together quite a few good performances as of late, and I'm a big fan of the way they're playing. I actually think that they're a pretty bad matchup for the Justice, because Justice largely revolves around their DPS play, right? Flora and alexyOWL have been very hot, but the Decay Birdring DPS line could keep them at bay. And since Boston generally have more individuals outside of DPS who can take over the game, like Smurf and Twilight for example, this should be Boston's game to lose, and I have them winning in a 3-1. Boston are simply better, and I think that Decay definitely wants to beat his former team and keep them from making Korea. Looking at the known matchups over in the lower bracket, they're pretty interesting. Shock versus Titans is like so massive. The Shock have played very poorly this year, it goes without saying, and they desperately need to avoid losing to Vancouver and make a push in this bracket to find their mojo. They cannot afford to lose this game. But sadly for Shock fans, a loss is exactly what I think most of us foresee. I picked the Titans to win this one. Shock don't look good at all. Proper's doing everything he can, but he's basically by himself out there. Only so much he can do. It takes a total team effort, and the Shock really don't have that with how out of sync they look. They're giving too much respect to their opponents when you watch them play, and that's something Titans could take advantage of, because what they lack in superstars, they definitely make up for in teamwork. They have consistently played good teams better than the Shock all season, and I'm a firm believer that the Titans are finally on the rise. They recently figured something out with Aspire, and now the whole team is starting to click. Titans are about to surprise some people, man. I just have a really good feeling about them. Speaking of teams looking to shine, the final lower bracket round 1 matchup is NYXL versus Toronto Defiant. Yet another rematch from the Western qualifiers, and yet another match where the team you wouldn't expect to win probably will. Of all the teams in the West knockouts, Defiant might be the team I am least confident in. The struggles are brutal. The loss to London was just the final straw for me and a lot of people, and we're at the point where it's hard to have faith. New York look more confident as a squad. They've gotten better by the week instead of struggling and getting worse, and their confidence definitely reached a new height after beating the Justice. And in a matchup with current-day Toronto, I'd say they have the edge bare minimum at DPS. And that's something that really worries me. Defiant's DPS rotation merry-go-round has not been pretty. They've been trying to figure something out, but to no avail, and I think that's where New York will take advantage. They're a little inconsistent, of course, but there is zero doubt they have been the better team the last couple of weeks, so we gotta stick with them. I'd say it's probably a close game. I don't think New York are gonna blow out Defiant, but I think they can win this one. And that's gonna take care of day 1 in the matches we know are gonna happen. So from here on out, we got a quick round of hypotheticals and my bracket. In winners, I think Mayhem will play Boston and beat them in a close series, as Florida, in my opinion, are definitely the best team in this bracket. An increasingly confident Boston team could be a good challenge for them, though. I think they match up surprisingly well on paper. Smurf versus someone is like an epic tank battle. The DPS situation is pretty insane, but to me, Florida should advance because of the better execution. Boston make inopportune mistakes at like the worst possible times, and sometimes their supports get carried away, and I think that's something Mayhem can take advantage of as the more stable environment, and they'll end up weathering the storm, although I do think Boston will get 2 maps in this series just because, again, they are starting to look a lot better. But who's joining Florida out of that lower bracket? Well, just to run through things super quick, Boston in my eyes will prevail. And yes, I think they'll beat Vancouver in a rematch if they play. Seems kind of crazy, but that's my thoughts. I'm expecting things to be way different from last time just because of that mindset diff. But really, no matter who they play, whether it's Titans or somebody else, I think Boston will make it through, as I do love the direction they're headed towards a lot. What probably catches your eye more so is how we get there. More specifically, my Titans losers final pick. Much like the Uprising, I'm on the Vancouver hype train. I think the growth from their players every single week is really captivating, and they're finally starting to unleash potential that they lost from many years ago. I like how their team operates. It's very balanced. It's a 3-level threat. Well, that and picking Glads or Justice would maybe be a bit too boring. And I think the losers bracket is the perfect place to have some spice, you know? It's one and done down there, and it's that any given week mentality that I'm trying my best to stick with right now. Titans just need to get hot, and I think they're very much overdue for a glow up. They kept it close with Gladiators the last time they played, so why not go all the way this time? Correct your previous mistakes and find a new level. I think in 2 back-to-back close games, they will overcome Gladiators and Justice. It's not going to be easy, but they've shown me that they have what it takes and that a lot of their players live for these exact moments. And from an in-game perspective, they've shown that they can play the most popular meta picks and flex onto other things when needed. They can outplay you. Really, the only thing stopping the Titans at this point, after all the experience they gained, is themselves. And I'd like to believe in a hypothetical against Justice that they could beat them. I think they're a decent matchup, and if they can beat Glads, I think they could beat them too, for sure. It's Titans time, baby. Now, looking at the rest of this, the Justice over New York pick could be controversial, but to be completely honest with you, I think that the Justice just were not prepared for them, and they're more so were looking towards the Gladiators. With time to review before the games, I believe that in a rematch they would correct those mistakes and be ready. Maybe that's just copium, but to me, the NYXL cannot hope to have these kinds of games on a consistent basis. Not with Changoon running the show, no shot. And with that, the West bracket's done. With the state of confusion the middle of the pack has been in lately, there is a whole lot of realistic outcomes and unpredictability here. This bracket should be a lot of fun. And as we move over to the East, I think much of the same could be said. Both brackets present some pretty compelling potential finals. And keep in mind, those will be a best of 7, so things are about to get crazy. In order to get to those points though, we've got to get through 2 quick losers finals matchups. In the A side, it's going to be Charge versus Dreamers, and while Charge are proven to be more vulnerable in recent weeks, they're certainly the favorites in this one because, Dreamers, they had a very promising week, but they haven't quite had to prove themselves against a team of the Charge calibers yet in this bracket. And the main issue I'm facing is how well the DPS perform against Guangzhou. There is a very big difference between dominating just an okay DPS line or a DPS line on a struggling team, and outplaying the likes of Choi and Jimmy. Spectra hasn't played a DPS of Choi's caliber on the Tracer yet this series, and I have my doubts that he can get away with doing whatever he wants like we saw last week, and I think with a more reliable backline on the side of Guangzhou, and generally just being angry after that Spark loss, that the Charge should take care of business here. Dreamers have shown some major ups, but also some major downs, which is why I don't think they're trustworthy to beat a team like the Charge. On the B side, O2 Blast is taking on the Dallas Fuel. This one is pretty interesting. I'd say most people think O2 win this game without much issue, but something tells me Dallas are gonna fight back. The defending champs usually play better under pressure in late season surges, so don't count them out. O2 are definitely a great team, but they're not unstoppable. Dallas have good talent. By using map picks to their advantage, they could pick those locations that are well suited for their playstyle. The only issue I'm facing though is the Dallas Fuel have to find a way to either win map 1 or map 5 in this series, as I think they'll probably lose on any of O2's map picks, and that's just something I'm very unsure of, which is why I cannot pick the Fuel. Dallas are too one-dimensional with their style. O2 can simply better play around the situations given to them with more versatility. If you can't match the fast pace, you're gonna sink, and that's what I expect to happen to Dallas. Even if I do think they will push O2 to a map 5, I do not see them winning this game. O2 have proven to be one of the best teams in this entire tournament, far more reliable than Dallas, and I just like their story a lot. So O2 all the way. And with that, we'd be left with Spark versus Charge and Infernal versus O2 rematches. And to be honest with you, I think that both rematches will again go the way of the teams that won the last time. As much as I'd like to see Charge beat Spark because I picked them initially to make it through, it became pretty clear, at least to me, that Spark are finding a solution to their troubles. By better playing around the abilities of their star player Shy, their potential skyrockets. They figured something out in that Charge series, and I'm a firm believer that they probably should have won the previous match before map 5 even happened. If Spark play this right, and Shy puts up another vintage performance, they should take this one probably a bit easier compared to last week. Jimmy has the same preferences as Shy. Charge just aren't a Sombra team, and I think that if the Spark utilize this knowledge, they will win. Their upside is just way higher in any sort of pure hit scan or sniper battle. The less the Spark try to force Sombra, the better off they're gonna be. I think it's finally starting to click with them after a few long weeks, and when the Spark are awake in a tournament bracket, there's truly no stopping them, so I gotta put all of my chips on them. Looking towards O2 versus Infernal, I think the real chance of a contenders team advancing to midseason madness is obviously right here. O2 have shown they're definitely a match for Soul Infernal because of their previous matchup. The only thing that I'm not entirely sure of here is if they can play up to their competition consistently. I think there's a big time difference between someone like Soul Infernal and Dallas Fuel. People are quick to forget that Infernal were in control for most of that match. Maps 1 and 2 were definitely one-sided, and it wasn't really until they eased off the gas during map 3 that O2 were able to claw their way back into this. They're just the better team, there's no doubt in my mind, and I especially think that if Infernal supports continue to stay hot like they have, that this match will go drastically different. Pretty much since day 1, Skewed's been farming APAC. There's more room for him to take over a match and set set up his teammates, so I think Infernal, with these advantages, will advance in a 4-1. Call me a hater if you'd like to, but that's how I feel. Infernal are not going to make the same mistakes. They're not that kind of team. They're ready for this one, and they'll finish the job. But I guess we'll find out soon enough, and I mean that for both the East and the West. With all the chaos that's been on the timeline, you never know what's going to jump out and surprise you next. Let me know what you think about the upcoming matches this week down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to this channel if you want to stay up to date with all of my most recent Overwatch content. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.